Hi, everybody, and welcome to Writing 2. This is week 15, and I am here to teach you. I promised that I was going to send a video of the class that was recorded this evening. For me, evening. For you, morning. Most of you can't wake up for such things. I get it. And I am suffering from a lack of sleep as well. And also, I need to go to sleep to teach you speaking tomorrow, whoever is in my speaking class. But unfortunately, I did not record this, and I did promise, and so I'm going to replicate the lesson using myself and questions that I'm going to ask myself as a student. So bear with me. I'm going to speed through this. You can watch it all. And yeah, let's go. Here we go, sharing my screen. All right, so screen is being shared. My old desktop number 2. Whoops, wasn't supposed to show you that. But yeah, this is a cool little feature on PowerPoint now, is that they add little cool subtitles. PowerPoint, oh, you didn't get it. Anyway, so writing 2, week 15, reviewing for the final. So yeah, welcome to nothing. Sorry, this has been a long week for me, for America, and a long couple months for all of us. So bear with me as I make my way to completing the school year. So yeah, this is technically the last week of school, week 15, but there is week 16, which is next week. We'll call it Dead Week, right before your finals. I'm gonna make the due date for your final not on the 15th of June, but not on the end of June. I need to grade these, and I might be grading these in a bunker or a dormitory somewhere. So, you know, I'm gonna stop looking at the screen over here. Um, so yeah, I need to grade your papers, and so I need some time to do it. I don't think I'm gonna have tons of time to be able to do it. And people are trying to sleep in my house, so I'm supposed to speak not so loud. Anyways, they understand. I'll send out the final assignment by next week on Google Classroom, and yeah, another video to help answer any questions that you have. So if you have any questions, I first want you to get together with your friends, with your colleagues, with your classmates, and that could be in person now. Oh, wow, the potentials. And it could also be on Zoom, and it could be on a WhatsApp call, or it could be on Google Docs with a combination of those things. Um, Go over these assignments. Talk about what you're supposed to be doing. If you have a question, help each other. If you need help finding an article, get help from somebody. Don't use the same articles. If you're in a little group together, I know which groups you guys are, so don't do that. No cheating and no plagiarism, right? No writing each other's papers. I know none of you have done that, because I would know. Maybe. Maybe some of you are good. Anyways, so let's talk about Google Docs. Some of you know it really well. Some of you have computers. Lucky for you, uh, you know, uh, live up to your that privilege and use it wisely and help other people along the way. Okay, if you only have a smartphone, I feel for you, but you're able to do these assignments. If you have pen and paper, oof, I really need you to not use pen and paper this time, because it was really difficult to read and grade, especially if you're not doing double spacing. I can't write between those lines, so please do that. If you have an issue with using Google Docs, do some research. I really can't emphasize that enough. And it was pretty hard to grade your papers if you didn't do it on Google Docs. If you hate technology, well, education is going to be pretty rough for the rest of your life, and as a teacher, maybe. So, we're going to talk about language settings in the Google Docs, and we're going to talk about basic formatting stuff. So, I'm going to switch out of Google PowerPoint, no, Microsoft PowerPoint, and we're going to jump into the wonderful world of something, Google Docs. Which one? This one. Okay. So yeah, I made a fake Turkish account for Google, and this is in the Turkish language. And so ooh, look at that. I've already typed this wonderful sentence. It's not the best sentence. I'm gonna do another one. They is going to. Oh, sorry, I spelled that wrong. To the. Okay, so yeah, usually, yeah, it does the spelling things for you. All you have to do when you see these little red lines, if you see these red lines, is click on it and say going. Uh, and this one's the mall, right? But yeah, there's something else wrong with this, and I don't know why it's not helping me. So we can go to the language settings here, right? So in file, as it's called in English, uh, we can go down to dil, which is language. And then from there, we can choose which language are we learning in today. Oh, English. Unfortunately, United States. Um, and yeah, that didn't really help me. So what am I gonna do? Okay, so I think by now you guys are learning English, and maybe English is the medium of instruction, which means that you are using English in your everyday life. So start to transition into using it. So here's how you can change your Google settings to English for everything. Challenge yourself, right? You see these words on a daily basis, you're going to be able to learn and memorize English words. So use this as a way that you can improve your English. So I'm going to go here to the accounts over here. And if you scroll all the way down, you're going to see a language setting. Right now it's set for Turkish. I'm going to change that. I'm going to add in the English. So you can keep Turkish, United States English, once again, unfortunately. I'm going to make it the default. So right here, this is the default language. And magically, using the power of technology, I have changed my Google account settings all to English. But some of you, this might be what you need in order to improve more, especially with reading. Right? So, and I'm going to have to what's it called? Start this guy. So here we go. Yeah, I am recording this time. So yeah, did it do it? No, still didn't do it. This worked last time, guys. Here's the language again. We are set to English. Let's make sure our grammar check. Yeah. Anyways. Oh, I have to put the period. Okay. So this blue line means grammar check. If you click on that, you can change it. It's going to help you out. This is, to me, not considered cheating. These little mistakes that you make, I don't take off points for. Native English speakers also make these little common mistakes. If there's something that's fossilized, something that you constantly make mistakes on, this is going to help you to see those mistakes. And by doing that, you're going to hopefully correct those mistakes eventually in the future, right? So use these tools, use this technology in order to be able to do such wonderful things. Yeah, and so if you do Control A, you can, or Command A if you're using a Mac, this is how you can change your length. You can highlight everything, change your thing. Let's talk about it more in the other section. All right. So yeah, going back to the PowerPoint. Yeah, so what is an argumentative essay? This is what we're going to be talking about. It's kind of similar to a cause and effect, and the only difference we'll talk about is that, yeah, there's the opponent side. So we're going to also be discussing what the other person, the other side thinks about this argument, right? So I sent out this PDF. I also sent out some answers to some of the questions that are in the PDF. Make sure you go through it. Make sure you read as much as you can, just to know this information, right? I'm going to go over it kind of quickly with you using this PDF. So here's the PDF, chapter 9. The last chapter we're going to be doing for the writing class. your writing career will continue on without me. So hopefully you learned something. But yeah, an argumentative essay is an essay in which you agree or disagree with an issue using reasons that support your opinion. Your goal is to convince your reader that your opinion is right. Okay. Mainly, we're going to be doing disagree. Okay. But you know, your paper might be a little bit different. So let's go through it. So yeah, read through this. Yeah, the one unique thing about an argument is that you do not just give reasons to support your point of view. You also discuss the other side's reasons and then rebut them. Right. So I like to say that word but this one's a different rebut. And a rebuttal is when you put somebody else's opinion out there and then you tell why they're not good. Right. So one of the things about argumentative essays and just I think generally in debate is that you always have to acknowledge, you have to know the other side's opinions, you have to know the reasons behind why they think something, because that's how you prove an argument to another party that's watching. Right. So you can't just like fight between each other. You're not going to change their minds usually, right? This is the problem that we have in the world. But you can help to change somebody else's mind by using a good argument in order to to take their argument that they make a rebuttal using facts and information in order to give a better you know debate and win this debate. In this debate, you're using the English language and you're using words, you're writing, and you're not speaking quickly and trying to, you know, convince people just by the charisma or other things. You're using good old facts, good old knowledge, and good research to be able to do this. Okay, though there's different organizations for argumentative essays, we're going to be focusing on this point by point pattern. Um, yeah, and for this essay, we're gonna stick to this 5 paragraph thing. Don't write more, don't write less, and probably the format will be similar. Last time I made 400 words, but I that was too little. So we're gonna basically you're gonna write about 2 pages. Okay, so anywhere from 500 to 700 words. And once again, if you are able to make a good argument with less words, it's better than if you use 800 words. And usually, when you did have 800 words, people, when it's really long, I usually think of plagiarism is involved because one, why would you write this much words if you didn't need to? And also because, yeah, when people tend to copy things, it's easy to see. I mean, I can see chunks of sentences that are much longer than something that you would write. Speaking about plagiarism, once again, it's pretty easy for me now to spot plagiarism from experience, and it's usually because, like I was saying before, people have a fingerprint, and most people have some kind of a writing fingerprint where, you have a certain style, unless that style changes over years. If I read something and it's a totally different writing style, different vocabulary, different, uses of conjunctions and stuff like that, it's pretty easy for me to spot. And that's why I ask for references and things like that, right? So I can look at that article and find it. And yeah, I do have the technology out there to just scan the internet for plagiarism. So I have the stuff. If you're in my class or you haven't taken my previous classes, yeah, there is a special software that I can use that magically, using not technology but magic itself, to find how much percentage is plagiarized. Um, and yeah, that's why you have to put quotation marks, right? Otherwise, it's called plagiarism. So yeah, this is a model argumentation. Argumentation. Is that a word? Maybe. And this one's about separating the sexes at school. And like I said, so yeah, this is the correct term, talking about biological sex rather than gender. But yeah, this is a model essay. Uh, it's kind of, it has a lot of different references that it makes to the study, to Blum, to gross, and gross again. Ooh, look at this bad little mistake there. So yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, this essay has 5 paragraphs, and read this, kind of understand what they're doing. What they start off with always is the opponents of single-sex education claim, right? So they're bringing in the other side. They're talking about people who are against single-sex education, and this writer here is actually arguing for the benefits of single-sex education. So having classes and schools where there's only female students and only male students. Um, and yeah, so read through it, see what you think, see what kind of arguments they make. This is rather long. This is not something the length of which you have to do. And we'll go over kind of my model that I wrote for you. But part of this assignment will be that you need to write an outline. So if you were in my previous class for the final last semester in the fall, you had to write a outline before you wrote your essay. This time you don't have to write it before. You should write it before. No, you should write this outline before. So in this outline, we use it to kind of chunk information together. The first Roman numeral is your introduction. You're going to explain the issue. And I think before I was telling you that, I wanted it to be more specific. This time, I want you to be able to explain the issue as if the person that's reading it doesn't quite understand the issue, right? So you don't have to use, you don't have to tell the whole history of what the topic is, but briefly introduce the topic, introduce the issue, and then write your thesis statement. Did we talk about thesis statement? Not yet. So we'll talk about how the thesis statement is written. And I generally think the best place to write the thesis statement is the last sentence in your introduction. And that's because that's the last thing somebody's going to read before they actually get into the meat of your writing. And by writing it at the end, you get to see your reader, that's the last thing that they remember. And because of that, it's going to be the last thing on their mind as they continue to read on. We go to the body. The body part is Roman number 2. And here we're not going to have D. We're not going to have 4. We're going to have 3 different body paragraphs. We're going to show it by opposing arguments and then the rebuttal. So you always introduce your opponent's argument first, so the other side, and then you're gonna have your rebuttal. Okay, so that's how this paper is gonna go. You're not gonna agree with the person, you're gonna disagree. I'm gonna clearly state that, and then we'll move on. So yeah, the 5 key parts of argumentative essay is that you want to explain your issue. You're going to clearly state your thesis statement, which is to say that you are going to firmly say where you stand on this issue. Okay, whether you think that this side is better, whether you think this other side is better. You're going to give a summary of the opposing arguments. Okay, so basically in each paragraph in the body, you're going to introduce the opposing argument, and then you're going to rebut it. Okay, and you're going to do that by introducing facts from the article, and also, like before, an interview with somebody. And you can be creative with this interview. You can ask a friend, you can ask your parents, you can ask anybody in the squeaky chair that I'm sitting on. And yeah, and finally, you can do your own argument, and then that lastly will be the conclusion, right? So the introductory paragraph is going to contains the explanation of the issue, which is a necessary part of the argumentative essay. However, you may also begin an argumentative essay with a more engaging introduction, with surprising statistics or examples, or with a dramatic story. So in the previous classes, and I can send this out to you guys later if anybody wants, but introduce your argument probably the best thing is introduce facts about things, right? Interesting facts. But yeah, explain what your topic is, and once you're finished explaining, so here they're talking about the diary of Anne Frank, right? And most of many of you have read it. When I was in high school, I had to read it, but maybe not everybody knows it. So just briefly introduce it. Right? You don't have to give the entire history of Anne Frank in the introduction. That's not possible. So what you want to be able to do is just briefly introduce the topic. And that should be written in an interesting way so that your reader wants to continue to read on. And then, yeah, at the end, you want to introduce your thesis statement, which is to introduce your opinion, where you stand on this issue. Okay. Um, yeah, and so your thesis statement in an argumentative essay clearly states which side you are for. Okay, so for example, curfew laws are unfair and should be abolished. In my opinion, stem cell research should receive the full support of our government. So those are two different thesis statements. But the way that I want you to do it is that often the thesis statement contains the opposing point of view. Okay, so notice that the writer's opinion is expressed in the main independent clause, and the opposing point of view is normally put into a subordinate clause. Okay, so the reason you do this is because the last sentence carries new information and also carries more importance, right? So you always want to introduce it with this kind of this reverse subordinating clause structure. So despite the claims that few laws are necessary to control juvenile gangs, curfew laws are clearly unconstitutional. Okay, so here, this is your statement. It's going to be at the end. And as a reader, when I'm reading that, that's going to be the last thing on my mind. So as I read into your body paragraphs, I'm going to be able to focus on the fact that curfew laws are clearly unconstitutional. Um, so contrasting signal words like despite, although, even though, that's going to be your bread and butter when you're writing the argumentative essay. So although there are certainly reasons to be cautious with stem cell research or any new technology, I believe that its potential benefits far outweighs its danger. Okay, so I would even say here, I believe that is probably unnecessary. Read it again. Although there are certainly reasons to be cautious with stem cell research or any new technology, its potential benefits far outweighs its danger. Okay, and the moment that you take out the "I believe" part, you're getting rid of that first-person pronoun. You're making it more of an academic writing, and instead of saying "I," you're kind of generalizing to anybody who believes what you believe. Right? There are other people out there besides you that believe in this, so. I think removing that "I" in an academic essay makes your writing more generalized to a bigger population. And that's why we do that. So when you're writing your thesis statement, which should be the last sentence in your introduction, I want you to follow this method, right? So having a subordinating clause, although, blah, 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 and then finally state what your belief is, what your opinion is, and you know, you don't have to say "in my opinion." The better thing is just to make a statement. It usually carries more, weight. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the rest of this, but you can go through and see other samples of how to write this kind of a thesis statement. Look through it, please. And these are the contrasting transition signals for contrast, although, even, however, in spite of, the fact, while, whereas. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And so, yeah, look through the rest of this. I gave you an answer sheet, so if you want to see what the answers of some of these things are, great, do it. Here's the review for argumentative essays, which is a word I can't say, I guess, really late at night when I'm trying to sleep. And my family's trying to sleep. These are the important points covered in this chapter. So an argumentative essay is a kind of essay in which you try to persuade your reader to agree with your opinion about a controversial topic. Okay. Controversial means that there's two opposing sides and people don't agree. It doesn't mean that it's something that we don't talk about. It's something that might have just two very polar opposite opinions on it, right? So, number two, an argumentative essay contains these five elements: an explanation of the issue, a clear thesis statement, a summary of the opposing arguments, rebuttals to the opposing arguments, your own arguments. And that's if you want to do that. We're going to use the point by point pattern where you first list the opposing argument and then you talk about your rebuttal argument to that opposing argument. Right? Be sure to include the opposite point of view as well as your own. So this is the big thing about argumentative essays is you have to show why the other side does this, why they believe this. So in this essay that we're going to be writing, you're going to be showing why there are certain people who used to do this, why it was accepted before, and why we need to change these things. All right, so yeah, go ahead, look through this, read through some of these. They're pretty long, so yeah, give it a go. And they're kind of more like newspaper articles, okay? But see how somebody carries an argument. I think the second one here is better, as in it's opposing. So this is about going to Mars. Look that up. And this is about world languages. So this might be really relevant to you. So two different argumentative essays about why there should be a world language, English, and why there shouldn't be. Okay, so read through these. Like I said, those articles I sent to you from the New York Times, those were supposed to be models for you to read and look at. They weren't what you were supposed to choose your topics on. Okay, um, so please go ahead and start to look for articles. So some of you have already turned them in. Some of you have seen what's going on in different parts of the world, in the United States especially, and have chosen things to talk about, such as racism. Very difficult topics. So good luck with that. But yeah, you're basing it on an article, so that's what's going to help you to do this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Make sure that you read this argumentative essay PDF in detail before you start writing. Okay, so know these things. We're gonna not talk about APA just yet. And we're gonna get out of this because now I am done with you. All right, so I am going to show you kind of a little skeleton model of what we're going to be doing for the final. So, like I said before, or as usual, we have a Google Docs, and it's going to be in your Google Classroom assignment. Please try to use Google Docs. If you have issues with it, have somebody help you. If you don't have access to the computer, that makes it really difficult. I understand, but yeah, some of you have become very successful at using Google Docs on your phones. If you have to use paper, please make sure that you have double space because it helps me so I can add comments and things like that. All right, so yeah, the usual stuff. Please write your name. I give you points for this, okay? So just don't forget it. Here I put the title, and I know I made it bold. You don't have to. Maybe I won't make it bold because the problem I saw last time was a lot of students were starting to type like this, and this was all bold, okay? And yeah, not a good look. It shouldn't be centered aligned. It should be left aligned. So, if I want to go back and change it here, I can press left align. Okay, there is a keyboard shortcut for that. And I don't want it to be bold. Okay, so I did take off points last time just because the formatting did not look right. And you guys got to learn how to do that. So that's not what's going to be in this essay. We're going to go over the outline real quickly, but this is the outline structure. And yeah, this is pre-writing. It's really important that you do some kind of pre-writing before you write. Don't just jump in thinking that you can just pump out a paper. Think and organize your assignment first. So the first thing you want to do in this introduction is that you want to write a thesis statement, right? I'm going to include that there. And yeah, in the body, there's going to be 3 different paragraphs. In the first paragraph, I want you to write what the opposing argument is and then what the rebuttal is. And you're going to do the same for each of those. Changed it on the other one, but for some reason I didn't change it on here. I'm going to let you choose or opposing argument. Oops. 3. So yeah, you can give your own reason, especially if it's something that you did not see in the article, or you can choose some kind of argument that they made in the article itself. Okay, and so yeah, here's my little model for my paper, which the article is called "Nature Can Be as Engaging as Video Games: How to Help Kids Fall in Love with the Outdoors." Okay, so that's the name of this article. It's from this webpage, ideas.ted.com. The author is Daryl Chen, and the date it was written is July 1st, 2019. Okay. And this is the article. The article gives some reasons why or how parents can take their children into nature. Okay. So to get back to this, so my thesis statement that I wrote for this is, although many parents do not think that they have the resources, uh, parents should help children appreciate nature. I don't know. What do you think about that? Is that a contrasting idea? Do they not have the resources? Although many people, something like that. Anyways, we'll fix that. And I'm going to send this out to you all so that you can see basically how I modeled this. I think it's a good way for you to emulate the style, and it's not to say that you shouldn't be creative, but a lot of times when we're learning something for the first time, we need good models and very detailed models in order to learn how to do it first, and then how to become an expert in it and do it on our own without having to use these models anymore, right? So um, I'm going to talk about nature in the introduction, and then in my last sentence, I'm going to introduce this thesis statement, which right now I don't think it's the prettiest thesis statement, and maybe it doesn't even sound logical to me at the moment. But hey, it's late at night, and I don't function so well right now. So maybe you can chime in, give me some opinions on that. So yeah, the next one is opposing argument number 1, and this one, so the opposing, the other side, right? You introduce their side first, what people say. So a lot of people would say going to nature requires a lot of expensive equipment or vacation time. Okay, and so yeah, that's why people don't go into nature. But my rebuttal is people can experience nature just by exploring the world around them, right? And we can combine that, right? Although a lot of people think going to nature requires a lot of expensive equipment or vacation time, it actually can be experienced outside the world around you, near your home, right? And yeah, part of this article was how somebody in the story, they became an expert on ants because outside their home in Pensacola, Florida, there was an ant colony, and he just watched it, and then he got really excited and ended up becoming an ant researcher. So that's the nature that we have all around us. If we open our eyes and we look down and we look up, we'll be able to see all those things. All right. The next body paragraph that I chose to do would be that children would rather use technology indoors than go outside. Right. So a lot of people just say, "Oh, my children, they're so used to just their phones. They don't go outdoors anymore. So the rebuttal that I'm using here is children can learn about nature through technology to gain a better appreciation of nature. This is coming from the article. It's not saying that I'm stealing the information. I'm using that information because I think that I also agree with the statement they made. And I'm showing what the other side would be talking about, right? But you don't even have to cut off completely using nature technology, right? Like there's not like going to nature, throw your phone, turn off your phone. No, like there's certain ways that we can use it that is beneficial to appreciate nature. And then finally, yeah, you can in the body paragraph 3, you can uh, add your own point of view, or you can choose another opposing argument. So here they're talking about being in nature provides mental. This is my argument. Sorry, being in nature provides mental and health benefits. Health benefits. Mental health, physical, and mental health benefits. There. Okay. And yeah, I'm giving different reasons. This one's lower stress helps people appreciate the environment, right? So better appreciation of the environment, and people don't try to destroy it. And yeah, so I felt like this article didn't really talk about that very much, and I wanted to give the benefits. And so you don't have to just use one article. There should be one that's your main article. So this is my main article right here. Okay. But yeah, I can include another one. Yeah, so I'm gonna include this other one, and I'm gonna talk about how you can include it in your references right after this. But I found some extra information about how it lowers stress. I wanted to include that to kind of give my own rebuttal, or to give some reasons why I think that this argument is valid, that I want to prove it. And so, and finally, in your conclusion, I want you to restate all of your arguments, right? So you have three different arguments, including if you had your own. You're going to restate those, and not with pronouns. A lot of you in your cause and effect essays, you mentioned something like, and because of this, people blah 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 blah. I want you to actually explain the whole thing. So this is the time to not be concise. This is the time at the end of your essay, in your conclusion, when you want to remind your reader exactly what you talked about. Right? So going into nature is really important. Although many people think it's expensive, it doesn't have to be, because you can go and see things around you. Opponents would say that children don't like nature and they just want to be on their phones. However, you know, you can use technology in order to enhance the appreciation of nature. And there are also other benefits, including health, mental and physical health benefits. Based on all these arguments, I think that parents should take their children into nature to help them appreciate it. Um, yeah. So based on these things, blah 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 blah, right? So that's how your conclusion is going to be. Don't skimp out on it. I know some of you, and I think it might have been my fault that you didn't write a long conclusion because you ran out of words. But um, don't follow the limits. Follow what you need to finish your assignment. Okay, so don't make your conclusion like this big when the rest of your sentences are this big. If you look at most articles, the thing that you want to kind of follow is the fact that when you make an argument and you write paragraphs, these paragraphs, I mean, this one's a little big, but like most paragraphs are pretty much the same size, right? And that's to say that, so if your argument number one is like a good length, your second one's like super long, and your third argument is like really short, it makes me question as a reader whether or not you have enough information to talk about that last argument. And if you see that, right, if a reader sees it, I think, hey, that's a weak argument, right? He didn't even have enough to kind of convince me. So if you see that visually when you're writing your essay, think about it. Maybe you have to choose a better argument. Maybe you have to do a little bit more research. Maybe you have to figure out a way to incorporate more information. But yeah, make sure that your conclusion is substantial, and it doesn't have to be super exciting. There's always that part where you're basically, your opinion is, this call to action, the suggestion that you're making is that people should go into nature, that people should take their children to see the forest, or just outside their backyard to explore and to engage in nature itself. um, Going back, we're going to talk about references real quickly because I forgot to do this, but um, so we have this article, and in this article, there's a title and the date and everything, right? I'm going to go over to the PowerPoint where we talk about APA for internet sources. OWL Purdue.edu. That's like one of the best sources for any information about APA. So if you have a question about how to include a reference, search for it. I'm going to, this PowerPoint's kind of weak, but I'm going to just send you the web link to the web page, and I'll send out this PowerPoint as well. But yeah, if we want to look, we're looking at APA for internet sources, right? So anything you find on the internet, this is how you're going to reference it. And this is what you write at the end, so that me as your teacher can actually find this article, click on that link right here, and be able to read it and make sure that it's a good article, and that what you're using is your own words and that you didn't borrow heavily from it, plagiarize. So don't do that. So yeah, if you, this is the standard. If there's an author, and most news articles have an author, right? So last name, first initial, maybe the middle initial. You don't always have to put that. The only reason you ever have to put middle initial is when there's the same last name, same first initial, then you have to put the middle initial. Okay. The next thing would be the year, the month, the date of the article itself, the title, and you can put it in italics, the little I button on Google Docs. You don't have to. It's nice if you did it. The site name. So my site name was idea TED.com, and then finally the URL. So copy in that entire link. Um, and that's going to be in your reference. The next one is if there's no author, but there is a group name. So here they're looking, there's no author, there's not one author, there's like a group of people. So this is the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. And notice here that there is no, their site name. There is no site name because this is probably the site name itself, right? So there's no author. You're going to start with the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. And that's like an acronym. So when you actually include that citation, you're probably just going to be the ASPCA. Okay. And then you're going to put that year 2019 so that people know. Once again, include that URL so I can look at the information. The next thing is if there is no author, and no organization for some reason. This is always a strange one, but so then you would put the title, and then here you would go put the date, the web page where it came from. So this web page probably just contains a bunch of articles not written by them. Yeah. And then you want to put the date that it was retrieved in this case, and then the URL from this URL. Okay, so if you have any questions, look up what the reference should be. Finally, let's see. If there is no date, you're going to put ND, right? So no date. If the thing is a Wikipedia page, then here you go. You're going to put the title of the Wikipedia, the date, and that date isn't the date it was made. Wikipedias change all the time. Wikis are updated by people when the information changes. So this is actually the date that you retrieved, the date that you were online, and that you looked at it, right? Because the next day that information is going to change. And Wikipedia is cool because there's versions, so I can look back 2 years on that same page and see how much has changed. Very democratic of them, right? And then finally in Wikipedia and the hyperlink, the URL, so I can see that. The last thing that you need to do is the last time you didn't have to do this, but I would like you to do it this time. So for the personal interview that you're going to have to do, and the personal interview, I'm going to talk about it right now. You can either talk to somebody that agrees with you or disagrees with you. Right? So you can include that person's comments in this rebuttal. That might make it really difficult for you, actually. But hey, I'm going to let you be creative. The better thing is to find, obviously, find somebody that agrees with you, so that you can help further your argument. So what I want you to do is you're going to include the person's last name and first initial. Okay. And when you reference it, you only reference their last name. You don't have to put their first name, the year, the month, the date of the interview, and then the interview type. Okay, so if you did it in a personal interview, face to face, then you can just write that in a period. We're done. All right. So APA, I'll send you that link to OWL Purdue so you can look up all that stuff. But yeah, this time I want you to include the reference to that interview. And, it's a good way to practice APA. So in the future, you know how to do all these wonderful, amazing things. Let's go back to this finally. Okay, so here, yeah, so here I have the reference to Chen. Okay, and I'm not finished with this yet, so I haven't finished all my references. I had an interview that I did the other day, so I'm gonna go over how to do this real quickly. So my friend's name, I don't know why I did that, is Mr. Logan himself, and his middle initial is G. And the date that I interviewed him was the 31st. Actually, sorry. So you have to follow this format. Sorry, it's not the Turkish format. This is the numerical format. Okay, and I'm going to put personal interview because that's what it was. And whenever I reference it, I'm just going to reference it with Logan in parentheses, Logan, comma 2020. Right? And so when you see that, you know that it's part of the interview. And something that a lot of you had an issue with last time was you never introduced who your interviewer was. So you just said the interview, blah, 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 somebody said this, right? And so you kind of need a little bit of context. You don't need to tell me that this person's your sister or this person's your father. But in an interview, with a male, blah, 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 you can put their age or something like that. If it's important, right? I mean, if it's like a generational issue, whether or not somebody agrees with same-sex marriage, or if somebody talks about, I don't know, technology, right? It might be important to include that information. I don't want you to, have to put their demographics, where they were born, what their shoe size was, but, just having a little bit of an introduction, right? So the interview was conducted, so that's how you make it passive, and that's how you don't have to say, I interviewed somebody. So the interview was conducted, or the interview took place on blah blah blah, and the interviewer, we have these things to say, right? So when you include the first reference, just mention where you got it from, right? Just like when you introduce that article for the first time, when you use that reference, state what that article is from. So in an article from medium.com, from an article from The Guardian, written on blah, 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 right? And just so that, it's not out of the blue. And you can do it out of the blue. There's certain ways. So ask me if you have a question about that. So yeah, we're wrapping up, but the last thing I'm going to do before I sign off and get to bed, because I have to wake up. So I wrote body paragraph number 2. Okay. I didn't write the introduction. I'll send that out to you guys later so you can have a model for your essay, but I'm going to read this to you. So body paragraph 2, many parents claim that children would be bored in nature due to their reliance on technology. However, as the article states, people do not need to reject technology completely to be in nature. Chen, 2019. So I kind of included the reference there. Yeah, you don't technically have to do that. But because I was referencing this material, I didn't mention their name. I didn't say Chen stated in an article. Uh, that's why I need the last name and the year. The article states that smartphone apps can be used to help people understand nature better. The the iNaturalist app allows people to identify plants and animals by taking a photo and receiving answers from an expert. 2019. So I don't have to put the Chen again because this reference was already referenced. I'm not changing it. So as a reader of an academic article, I know that because it's just a year, it's going to be connected to the previous one. If it is a different article, then you would have to put a different name here, right? A different first name. In fact, people can use smartphones to photo document their hikes while finding trails using hiking apps. In my interview, the interviewee stated the following: I often take my children on short hikes where they have to take photos of wildlife that they have never seen before. Logan, 2020. So that was the reference to my interview, right? And so if I'm reading this and I see that name, as a reader, I can just go down and say, oh, cool, that's Logan. He did that 2020, May 31st personal interview. Nice. Okay, so what is wrong with this paragraph? It's something that many of you make mistakes on. You've gotten warnings and minus points and all sorts of things. It's something that people commonly do. It's something that you might even find in that PDF about argumentative essays. It's just something I don't think is really a good way to end anything. Okay, so yeah, you probably picked up on it, but don't end on a quote, especially an interview, right? So it doesn't look good. It doesn't. It taking power away from your voice. You're allowing somebody to have the final word, and it should be you that has the final word, right? So you need a concluding sentence in every paragraph in my class. Okay, and I just think it's a really good way to transition to the next part or finish your thoughts, right? So think about the same thing. Whenever somebody finishes a paragraph, you want them to remember the last thing you wrote. Okay, and if it's something that somebody else wrote, it's not going to be as powerful. It's not going to sum up what you said. You can summarize this by restating the topic sentence. I always, one of the tricks that I like to do is I look at the topic, I look at the concluding sentence after I wrote it. Do they match? Do those ideas end on a new idea, which is not a good thing? Or am I restating what I said? Or am I doing this other cool thing where I'm transitioning into the next paragraph? So I'm going to go ahead and write a little concluding sentence. People don't, do not, don't use contractions when you're writing. Do not think. It's not like for academic writing. It's not an acceptable standard. Whether or not you agree with that, that's an argumentative essay that you can write about. People do not think that children how do I do this again? Okay, nature. People can use technology to enhance their appreciation of nature. Okay. So I basically stated what my rebuttal is, right? Like what my argument is that people can use technology. So maybe children's better. Children can use technology to enhance their appreciation of nature. And I gave some reasons. I don't have to restate them unless I want to be a little bit more detailed, their appreciation of nature through different apps. Okay, and that thing that I talked about transitioning to the next paragraph. So my next paragraph would be about the health, physical, mental health benefits of going into nature. So I can also transition using kind of this statement, but then I can add something. So don't make your sentences so simple. You can combine different ideas using conjunctions. Get used to writing long, beautiful, uh, you know, long, and I would say long, like maximum 3 clauses. Don't ever go 5. That just gets messy. And usually I consider it a run-on sentence. So children can use technology to enhance their appreciation of nature through different apps. Oops. In order to, uh, gain some health benefits, as we will see, or as we will read about in the next paragraph. Yeah, you don't have to write it so like that, but this is very specific. I like specific, as you know. Okay, so this would be one paragraph in your essay of 5 paragraphs. It's anywhere from 500 to 700 words. Don't go over. Don't plagiarize. Um, I didn't end on a quote, right? I have a concluding sentence. So reread your paragraphs. Make sure that you have something that summarizes or restates your topic sentence or transitions to the next paragraph. Okay. Easy, whatever, 2 or 5 points that you miss every time you do that. And I generally think that it's a better organized paper when you have all of these components, right? Your topic sentence is going to be that statement, the although, opposing statement, comma, rebuttal statement, right? So here, parents claim that children would be bored in nature due to their reliance on technology. However, although, right? So I kind of flipped it around. So we can say something like, although many parents claim that children will be bored in nature due to their reliance on technology, people do not need to reject technology completely to be in nature. All right. So yeah, I think hopefully that covered everything I said before. Um, we had a question about that last assignment. So yeah, make sure that you turn in that assignment. You don't have to, I mean, there's a due date, which is today. Don't worry about the due date. What I want you to find is an article, and I want you to be able to do some research, right? So go into your old Google. You don't have to do anything special, but if you're talking about, sorry, ooh, I hope that didn't show anything weird. So yeah, cases for going into nature. There's different things you can use, like you can click on the news tab right here. Another tool that's really helpful, really useful, is you can choose when this article was. So if it was something in the past year, you can click on that and it'll send you over to the link. I don't know why everything's about COVID though. Nature. Ways to explore nature. Yeah, so here we go. And if it's a specific year you're looking for, let's say that you're talking about protests in LA or in Los Angeles. It's something that's happening right now, right? It's going to give me something that happened 5 days ago, but let's say I wanted to contrast that with something that happened in 2012, which was the year of the Rodney King beating. We can kind of go back. We can choose archive. No, we're going to choose custom range. Okay, and here you can either choose a date or you can type it in yourself. I'm just going to put everything in 2012. So cool, this worked. Police shootings, protests rocks Los Angeles suburbs. So the date of this article is 2012. So if I wanted to contrast these 2 different years, I could do that. Right? And so all of these articles now are going to be from 2012. So yeah, learn how to use Google. I'm not going to teach you all that I know, but there are ways to make a good key terms. You're gonna hopefully be using English to do these searches. So find a topic that interests you, that you think is near and dear to your heart, that you're passionate about, or just something that you want to see change in this world, and go ahead, find an article, put that in that assignment so I can make sure that that article is okay, that it's relevant, that it's from a creditable source. It's not fake news. It's not propaganda put out by the government or something like that. You know, stick to different, the tried and true, whether it's a newspaper or it's something like medium.com, and something that makes references to other things, not just somebody's opinions. It could be somebody's opinions, but you know, find at least two, right? And you might just choose one of those. You might use both of them. You only need to choose one article for this assignment, as well as have that interview with whoever you want to interview. So yeah, go ahead, do that. It's getting late. I'm gonna call it. Um, but before I do, I guess I did read a letter. Um, so yeah, my last statement before I go is I will read my letter that I wrote um, to my future self. No, sorry, to my current self from the future. So I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna save this and send this video out so that you all can see what's going on. I hope I said this as clearly as I did in the actual class now that I'm recording it again. But yeah, here we go. So this is written 21st of September, 2020. And this is Dear Bob of June 1st, 2020. So I'm writing to you from the future. The world has calmed down a bit, but life is not back to the normal we had known before. Things can't go back to normal after everything that has happened. It's like the veil was lifted on the world, and what we now know has made people struggle for a positive change in the world. I know that you struggled with your choice to return to the United States, but you found out through your intuition that it was the right choice to be with your family through all the chaos of the months of COVID 19. They supported you, and you were able to support them. I know how much you're, you struggled with teaching online with the time difference and distractions of the world around you. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices to help others, but don't worry, you helped your students and you got to rest, recover, and become stronger after it was done. I'm here in Turkey again. Let me get some water. I'm here in Turkey again. I had a great summer meeting with my old friends in Adana. I even met with some of my students. I got to travel around Turkey to see the beaches and finally explore Istanbul with your friend, Becca, who also returned. I learned more Turkish with new friends, swam in the sea for a week in Muğla and Izmir. The problems in America were never completely solved. Those problems will remain for a long time, as long as people don't get the resources, support, love, and education that they need in order to see each other as human beings. You did your part. Don't worry if you couldn't stand with the people on the streets. That's not your role anymore, like when you were in college. As an educator, you have and will always have the power to do uh, much more with your voice, idea, and heart. Those protests in America led to protests all over the world against racism, oppression, and dehumanization of people as a commodity to be used. They inspired people globally to fight against corrupt leaders and will eventually help people to see that we're fighting one common enemy, inequality. This letter is getting long, and I have to run to class to teach speaking one to the new first year class. Wish me luck. With hope and love, Bob from the future. P.S. Stay away from Turkish women. Oh, that Bob from the future. What a funny guy. So yeah, anyways, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it covered everything. If you have any questions about any part of this assignment, please write in the comment below. And then if there's enough comments, I can make a follow-up video. I'm going to send out the assignment itself hopefully by next week and send you a model of my writing so that you can see kind of this idea, and you should have a pretty good idea. Think of it kind of as cause and effect essay 2.0. This time kind of with the information from the opposing side. So it's following that similar format. If you have any questions, sorry, I'm also going to send out a model example of that writing from cause and effect, so you can kind of go over the things that you missed, compare it with something that I wrote. Hopefully, you could be the judge if it's a perfect paper or not. But yeah, discuss with each other, ask each other, help each other. If there's something that you had an issue with that you don't know how to overcome, talk to each other. Use the power of the internet. Use Zoom to set up a meeting. Share your documents with each other. You can just use the camera even to like say, hey, why did I miss this? Talk about that. If you're you wrote your essays, that's one part of it. The real part of the learning is like going over your mistakes and seeing what you can learn from that, right? Like if you're not looking at the feedback, if you're not looking at why you missed something, you're never gonna improve, right? So if you make the same mistakes from this one to from the cause and effect midterm to the argumentative essay in the final, I'm going to say, hey, you actually didn't learn what you're supposed to learn. And not that I didn't teach you. Sometimes it's also that you know, as a student, need to go over the things that you missed, the mistakes that you made. And remember, midterms are meant for mistakes, right? Midterm mistakes. A little alliteration there. So make those mistakes, learn from those mistakes, overcome those mistakes, become a better writer, become a better English speaker, and then potentially become a better teacher. So thank you very much for watching. I should have stopped sharing a long time ago, so now you can see my face. And yeah, thank you so much. I hope I was able to answer all your questions, and go enjoy nature, enjoy outdoors. I think you guys have freedom, most of with the changes in these measures due to COVID-19. And let me know if you have any questions. All right. Thank you very much, and good night, good morning, whatever time it is in the world.